Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cultured Podcast. We have a very, very special guest with us here today. His name is Nasim Benelkour. Nasim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, hello everyone. My name is Nasim Benelkour. I'm a jack of all trades, I would like to say. Mainly, I'm a voice actor, but I'm also a content creator under the name of LuxPath, as well as an actor and a model, and even a casting director. I started my voiceover journey when I was 12 years old, and ever since the age of 12, I always wanted to be in this space, in this industry, and I worked my way to be able to be in the position that I am in now. So I'm really blessed to be where I am in this position, and yeah, that's honestly it about me.
There's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff we can hit on. The first thing I kind of wanted to ask you actually was, what kind of got you thinking about voice acting in the first place? Do you have any favorite things that inspired you, like any pieces of media or like a movie or an animation or anything for that matter?
I mean, when I was, and this was around the age of 12, like I mentioned, when I kind of started thinking about voice acting. I used to be an animator, a stop motion animator, more particularly. And I loved animation at that time. I was constantly doing it. I was as obsessed about that career as I am with voice acting right now. And I was just grinding it out until one day animation became really tiring. I kind of fell out of it and I became more attached to telling and conveying a story. And I decided to chase the next big thing, which was voice acting. I did voice acting in my own projects, in my stop motion films. I did voice acting for other people's stop motion films when I was of the age. And voiceover was kind of like the next thing lined up. But man. So I would say that, like, kind of the concept of telling a story was the main thing that brought me into voiceover as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like personally, I can definitely relate with that on a on a spiritual level. Kind of like what drew me to voiceover and just kind of like storytelling in general, right? Because I think a lot of us, as actors, kind of like have our fingers in like five different things. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, like when you talk to an actor, it's like usually they're more than just an actor. A lot of us are like writers or they are artists, like they paint and tons of things like that. And I feel like a lot of that comes from the idea of wanting to tell a story, right? Because
Yeah.
initially with me, I was like, oh man, like I really want to be like a writer or I want to create my own like stories, and my kind of inspiration for voice acting kind of stemmed from that place. I imagine when you're creating animation or like when you did create animation, um, it came from a very like similar spot. I'm imagining,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of interesting. So I think this kind of like ties to my next question, which is basically just like how, or I guess I should say, like, is there any piece of media in particular that really inspired you as a kid? Like, this is like your go-to thing. Um, for me, it was Pokemon was like a huge thing in my childhood that made me like exploded into like anime and like all sorts of other things.
Hmm.
So I can think that series in particular. For me, it's Bleach, the thing that made me want to do wanted me to do voiceover specifically. Hearing Johnny Ambage do the screams, like everything about that was so insane, so crazy. I'm like, this is insane. I want to be just like them. So like, go ahead and like tell me if you have anything like that. You know?
Oh man, I feel like that the biggest thing for me, I mean, I don't even bring this up a lot, was Lego. When I was doing stop motion animation, I would use Lego minifigures to be able to actually do the stop motion. And Lego was honestly, if not the biggest part of my childhood, watching shows like Lego Ninjago or any of, like, the And anything that was Lego related that was put onto a piece of media, I have definitely watched. Like even so far as Lego Friends, and it was honestly that because I feel like that everything from like Lego wise, being able to build anything you want, um kind of allowed my imagination to flow free. And when I was able to watch, I would believe it was the Lego movie. I'm not sure what age I was when I did watch it, but when the Lego movie came out and I got to see it was Chris's performance as Emmett, and that role like really did it for me because he was, oh man, I just I'm fanboying about it because Emmett was this character that in this movie he wasn't like, he didn't have like already a piece of media attached to it. It wasn't like Batman or Gandalf, or he was an original character, put in place for this movie. And Chris really brought his acting ability from doing stuff on screen to this little tiny Lego boy. And oh my gosh, it was such an amazing thing to witness. He was funny, he was all over the place, and it was just like a regular guy. And being able to see that in that theater when I was really young, like, really allowed me to also be open to incorporating voice acting into my animations that I had. Because without seeing the Lego movie and, seeing how cool it is to have voices and, these characters essentially coming to life via these voices, I honestly probably would just had subtitles the entire time with my series.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's really cool, being able to see that performance and like have it like almost change your like whole trajectory is really interesting. It's funny that you mentioned Legos, right? Because you're right, it is such an imaginative thing, and I think all of us kind of have like that type of experience of like playing in the sandbox, if you will. Like when I was a kid, I used to like play pretend with my friends, and I know that kind of opened me up to a lot of my own personal creativity and just things like that in general. And
Mm.
I think that's really really cool that you had that kind of that base. Especially in animation. I mean, you actually like went out as a 12-year-old and were out here doing animation, stop motion animation with your own voiceover at the age of 12. um I think that's kind of crazy. I mean, I know when I was 12 I was too busy farting around playing Pokemon and like worrying about like whatever I would do the next day or like what anime was about to come out. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of crazy that you had like this drive and like this ambition. Um,
Yeah, man. Like, but I was a weird kid. Like growing up, I was a very, very weird kid. I was always obsessed, and I had this obsession over really anything that I loved, whether that been Lego or even Pokemon. I had my Pokemon phase, or Sonic, or like anything that I got into. It wasn't just like a regular likeness for me. It was always an obsession. Like I would, in my Lego phases, I would talk to my friends about Lego to the point like that they got sick and tired of me. Like it became annoying, borderline. And when I was in my Pokemon phase, it was the same thing. Towards when my teacher, I remember this is like a far, far memory. I had a teacher in my class. I'm not sure what grade it was, but they gave me this Pokemon book, and I didn't even like to read that much. I was more of a picture reader as a kid. And as I got that book, and I almost cried, man. I was so hyped over a book, and I never thought in a million years, even at that age, that I would be that hype over a book. But it was because of my obsession over Pokemon and my obsession over these things. And being of that age, a lot of things don't really process much in your head, but a lot of things, at least for me, clicked. Which was I want to do everything realistically in my power to do the things I love for the rest of my life. And as soon as I had that clicking moment, as I like to portray it as, even as young as being 12, I put in as much work as I possibly could to achieve that dream of mine. Even when being an animator, um, I was just trying to do the absolute best I can to just portray a story, and I did.
Like I said, I mean, I think that's really quite exceptional, especially as a young person. Which is kind of like I said, your animation experience ties into my next question, which is how does your experience in animation affect your voice acting? I imagine that when you were directing these things as a kid, you had to worry about like maybe like how you like where you're gonna put your voice, like how does that affect your whole like process? Do you think that being being someone who did animation has helped your voice acting, and if so, how?
100%. I feel like that I would not have gone into this voiceover career if it wasn't with my time spent amongst animation, because I was always my mind always played visuals for me, and my concept of telling a story at first comes from my mind. I'm a very imaginative person, and it all stemmed from my brain. So when trying to come up with animations, I had a very weird process. I never had scripts as a kid. I never really knew how to write a script properly. I just had a small notepad of the key things that I wanted in this, like, film, or in this like part of the episode, and I would just do it right there and there. And the entire time I would just go off of my imaginative thinking and convey that in the scene that I'm trying to animate, essentially. And it all came out into one whole thing. And, around that time, people said that it was pretty good. So, you know, it was really dope. And connecting that to voiceover, I feel that, being able to discover this imaginative mind of myself through doing animation and through like now doing voiceover, it has helped so much when I'm reading copy, when I'm trying to find out the who, what, where, when, why of a script, when I'm doing a workshop, or when I'm reading audition sides or any of that. My biggest strength now as a voice actor is the fact that I know how to play pretend, and I know how to envision the scene and play it out in my head and include details, you know, and be very descriptive with stuff, all just within my brain. And although the process of animation didn't help me like figure out that, just more of the way that I approached animation stop motion wise is the way that it kind of benefited that as a whole.
Hmm. I mean, that makes total sense, right? A lot of what we do has to do with imagination and picturing things in your head. I mean, it's especially different from like traditional or like physical acting because you don't have your facial expressions, and a lot of the time we don't have scene partners to rely on, so it's all coming off the dome piece, right?
Yeah.
It's all coming off the top of the head. So I think that's really interesting, and like I said, it's really impressive. I say, and cool that you have this kind of experience. You know.
Hmm.
Alrighty. So there's a lot of things kind of unpacked about you. You got a lot going on. Um, um, I know that you're a webtoon influencer, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what are some webtoons that you are excited to see adapted into, like, an anime or like a motion comic or like anything like that? You know?
Oh man, the first webtoon that comes to mind would be Jungle Juice. And Jungle Juice to me is probably one of the best webtoons I've read so far in my whole journey of like trying to find content. Because as an influencer for webtoon, like your essentially priority is just to create content surrounding around webtoon. So as soon as I got into the influencer program, I immediately started, reading more into webtoon. And out of all of the comics I've seen, Jungle Juice stood out to me the most. And it was because of just how entertaining it was. And me bringing it back to kind of just the type of reader I am a visual reader. and words are I have to read words as a voice actor, so yeah, but I like visuals a lot. That's why I adore manga, and that's why I adore comics. And seeing Jungle Juice is like, it's so exciting. Like every time you flip the page or every time you scroll down, like a new scene just pops up, and I can't even describe it fully because there are things about comics and there's things about materials that, at least to me, there's certain key parts of it that has to keep me entertained, right? And if I'm not entertained, I don't think that I would be able to bear through reading the rest of it. And I feel like it's just a big thing with webtoons overall, that maybe it can maybe it's like the I guess the style of, the artwork, or maybe the concepts of the scenes or the storytelling. I don't know what exactly it is, but just webtoon comics in general. But it's like watching a series that it's so, brings you in so much that you don't want to stop watching and you have to continue watching the next episode. That's how it is for me with Jungle Juice and a lot of the comics that are on webtoon, is that it just keeps me continue to keep going. And to even have a thought that Jungle Juice would get an anime or like an adaptation or a motion comic or anything amongst that would be so dope, because I oh my god, I can't even go in depth into that, because it would just be me crackheading around about like who I think would be the best fit for this character voice acting wise, or this, and what studio would I want animated. But no, I feel like that out of all the webtoon comics I've personally seen, Jungle Juice is definitely something that I would love to have any type of adaptation, whether it be like anime or even animation or like even a web comic, because that series is super entertaining, man.
No, yeah, 100%. The reason I bring it up is because number one, I think it's interesting that you are a webtoon influencer, and number two, like we've seen stuff come out recently. Like everyone knows that solo leveling coming out.
Hmm.
It's being produced by Mappa, right? Is that correct?
I believe so.
Let me double check real quick. Yeah, so.
Yeah, because Mappa is picking up a bunch of stuff.
Oh, it's actually not Mappa. It's A1 Productions, which is interesting as well. But clearly, like we saw it. No, that's why my brain is thinking Mappa, because of the God of High School. That was done by Mappa. But yeah, like we're seeing webtoons get this kind of like recognition on a much like wider scale than we've ever seen before. You know. And so that's why I kind of thought that it was interesting that you are a webtoon influencer. Like, how did you go about doing that? Like, did you just apply? You just got it, or like, how did that happen? Did you need to meet somebody? Like,
Well, the process was honestly pretty interesting. So I met a friend. His name is Dr. Garrow on social media, and I met him at my first convention that I went to, which was Anime NYC in 2021. And I stumbled across him, actually, like a friend of a friend type deal. And I was introduced, and we just started shooting the stuff. And we brought up Webtoon. We started talking about it, and he brought up that he was a Webtoon ambassador. And around that time, Webtoon was looking for more ambassadors for their program. And, he sent me the application link as soon as I got home. I filled it out, and I got denied. So,
tragedy
but
strikes.
I'm glad I did, because, leading that into it, it was around a time where I, had everything on one place, social media wise, and my social media presence was so all over the place. It was so unorganized. It was all, if I did not get denied from Webtoon, I would not have took a second look at my social media platforms and did the necessary organization in order to actually make it, clean in a sense. So, I did, but then I got a letter from, or an email from Webtoon again, saying that they had interest in bringing me on to their influencer program. and signed some stuff, and I went on as an influencer. Got invited to the Discord and whatnot with all the fellow influencers in the space, and yeah, I just started making content surrounding around the webtoon and whatnot. I definitely got to start doing more. But it was very exciting, like not sadly not being able to be an ambassador, but through getting denied in that process lit the fire even more, and just like, okay, I'll prove to webtoon why I should be an ambassador. uh so I'm doing this through the influencer program.
Nah, man, that's super duper cool. Like I said, you kind of, like I said, what I was saying about having your hands in different pots, right? Like I know you're a director. I know you're an actor as well. I kind of wanted to actually ask you, in that line of like directing and being a director, what kind of like drew you to that position? Like, what drew you to the role of directing? You know.
Hmm. I feel as though, well, not primarily directing, but more casting directing on that side. I'm not, I'm not fully confident in my directional ability, but casting wise, what drew me to casting was, I was always a casting director. When I was young doing that. When I was in the animation field, I was casting for my productions. I was casting for other people's productions, and it was really just a thing like that I just popped the question with. I got onto a production when I did some direct marketing, and they brought me on as a voice actor for this character, and they needed help when it came to trying to find more voice actors for their stuff. And during the time, and now I'm well connected with a lot of voice actors in this space, and have the knowledge of what makes a good casting call, and what actors fit and for what characters, and I kind of have that vision for that little niche. um so I just popped the question like, hey, do you need a casting director? Do you need help with this? And they said yeah. So I'm very new to this space of being a casting director. I've only been casting for about 3 to 4 productions. But throughout that process, I've been learning like even more throughout it. And initially, what drew me to it was just wanting to find the right role for everyone, because I feel like that as a casting director, like you hold so much weight from the production side of things, like responsibility.
Sorry about that, guys. We had some technical difficulties. Florida internet is not the best, unfortunately. So where we left off on was, we were discussing the responsibility of being a casting director. So continue. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the responsibility from being a casting director is, like I said, immense. And especially with people like in not only this industry, but even with people that are in this indie space, responsibility goes its fair share. And the higher you go up as being a casting director, like the more bigger productions that you take on, the bigger and bigger and bigger amounts of responsibility comes with that. But I felt like that I wanted to take a risk. I wanted to take the challenge. I had experience casting, directing before, so I felt that I was ready for that responsibility, and I proved myself with my first production that I casted for, and it went great. You guys probably seen some of the castings out there for Polywog, and that was my first time casting at a long year gap, and the response was amazing. It was so immense, and yeah. So really, what just drew me to casting was that responsibility, to be honest.
Really, like the picturing in your head, like figuring out what voices go where with these characters, giving your talent a chance, like that whole idea, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh, okay, okay. I think that's really cool. So like when reviewing an audition, right? Because you're a casting director. Um, what kind of draws you to a specific actor, or like what about their side kind of makes you think, okay, this person's interesting, maybe they'd be a good fit for this character? Because I'd imagine you're probably going through easily a couple hundred submissions, um,
Hmm.
uh, for these projects, right? So
Yeah.
I guess I kind of want to get inside your mind a little bit, and get inside your head and figure out what that X factor is, if any at all, right?
Hmm. I mentioned this on the little birdie app before, but the biggest thing that honestly attaches me to an actor's performance, or just an actor when they send me in an audition, is the connection. Connection is, at least to me, the biggest thing that I look for in any performance that anyone sends me. I feel like that developing a connection with a character and showing me that you care about the character that you're auditioning for, it goes a very long way. I can tell a difference from someone that spent 2 to 3 minutes on their audition and rushed it, from a person that took their time with the role, understood this character's wants, needs, how they act, why they're doing this thing, and finding ways to make this character their own. And that is the person that I'm going to cast 9 times out of 10. Is the person that shows me that they care for this role more than anybody else that has auditioned for this project. And obviously, there are other factors that go into too. Like, does this person have the right voice? Because that is somewhat of a factor when you're looking for the right voice for a character. You can't get a 12-year-old little kid to do a 80-year-old old man, So yeah, the voice plays a factor, unfortunately. There is reliability as well, trust. That is a big thing, especially within this space and industry. How reliable an actor is. But to me, like, if you ever audition for anything that I do, connection. That is the biggest aspect of a performance that I personally become attached to. And I can see that through when talent does a little improv. Oh, I love improv when they do it. Obviously, not overboard. Don't give me a whole different other story from, the lines that I provided, but just little bits and pieces, because even that shows that you care more, because you're taking that time to see, okay, I want to improv, I want to add in probably this little tiny thing to make myself different, but also it allows me to see that you understand the scene a little bit more, especially if you do the improv right. Just all of it boils down to, at least for me, is connection with the character, showing me that you care through your performance. That is it. Through your performance, through that MP3 or wave file, or even a .ogg if you use that, it showing me that you care for this character. Because what I personally dislike is people wasting time. If you do not care for this character and you're only primarily auditioning for this audition to earn yourself another credit, then I don't want to hear your audition. I want to hear the auditions of people that care for the character that they're reading for. That when they join this production, they will have more care, if not the same level as the creators of the production. That you actually want to be this character and not just want to add another role to your resume, and not just want to, post this as an announcement on Twitter, or not just any type of social media gain or marketing gain or whatever. That you actually care about this character, you care about bringing this character to life, and you actually want it. Those are my biggest things when it comes to casting anybody, and the biggest thing that draws me to an actor.
No, I mean that makes total sense, right? Like I know that the way you look at an audition can definitely impact how you go about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's that desperation, there's a lot of actors out there that they have they're desperate, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
and that shows in your auditions, right? Like if you are like, I have to get this audition because I have to pay bills, and like I have to do this thing, or I need to get to this place. Do you think that type of like desperation shows like in a side or like or an audition? Like what do you think?
I feel like that anything can show in an audition, whether you're desperate, whether you're, wanting, whether really it be any type of emotion, it can show in your performance. I've, gandered or wandered through audition sides and copy that have been primarily, I can see some type of, desperation towards wanting to get this role. You can even see desperation with people reaching out to you individually to see if that they got cast or any of that. My biggest thing when it comes down to anything is that if you're going to send an audition, this is just from a voice actor perspective, send and forget. Even if it's for the biggest role you ever done, right? Send and forget. Because at least for me, I don't want anybody coming to me in my DMs asking if they got cast for a role, like before I even had the deadline or even after the deadline. If you get cast, I'll tell you, you know? Um, and desperation, it doesn't look that well with going on to any production. And I understand it. Don't get me wrong. When I was starting out, I was doing, like, you can look at my casting call club. I did over 600, 700 auditions like on casting call club alone. But I still maintain the process of sending and forgetting. I never reached out to the casting director asking if I got cast or asking, like, really giving me opportunity, all these other things. Like, no, I'd send my audition, and that is what I'm doing, and that is what they want. So I'm giving them what they want and just sending them auditions, sending and forgetting, right? Obviously open to asking like the casting director questions. If you have questions about the audition, questions about the sides, I've had that happen. Totally cool, okay, but desperation isn't something that you want to convey really at all. Whether it be messaging or reaching out to a casting director or even trying to have that in your audition. Or maybe if it's involved in the role, if you're trying to play a desperate character, yes, 100%, be desperate. I want to hear that. But, like, just outside of that, like, no. And try to control that the best you can. I know it's hard, but, it does not look right.
Yeah, and like I said, I can understand that, like too, like I mean, I've been there. It's a very common thing with actors. That's why I think it's very important to talk about this type of stuff.
Hmm.
Get different perspective on it. Like ask, like what we can do to combat it. Like I said, I think this type of stuff is very, very, very important, and it's a great tool for young actors to kind of understand.
Hmm.
Like, do you have any advice for any like young actors or like any up and coming aspiring voice actors?
Ooh, okay. And this is just like general like voiceover.
Yeah, you can do voiceover. It could be about, like I said, like auditions. It could be literally anything. Like, what piece of advice do you have? I think you're, like I said, you're a very interesting person because you started via like voiceover relatively recently, and look how successful you are. Clearly, you have a lot of you're on the right track. You have a lot of great things going for you. Um, I think like what like what piece of advice has factored into your success?
Oh, okay. Got you. All right. So I've received a lot of advice from my career when starting out, and even now because I'm not an industry pro. I am still chasing this career as much as anybody else in this indie space. Like I am still like on the grind. But I received a lot of bits and pieces and advice, and I do want to lean more towards the advice bit, and I'll actually say who this advice was from because I feel like that it does carry the importance. So I'll give my top three advices from my career. Does that work?
Oh yeah, 100%. Whatever you want to say.
Got you. All right. So number one, it was from Bill Butts, and this guy, he's amazing. Please follow him on Twitter. He's outstanding. Ask him questions. He's great. So The biggest piece of advice that I've ever got from Bill was, and I can't quote it word for word. I would definitely have to go back to our DMs, but overall, it meant have your own journey. I was asking him so much advice and so many things, like, oh my gosh. He just said, have your own journey. Learn, have your own experiences. Go out there and do what you need to do. And and that, I feel like the voice actors are really cryptic when they speak, and I love it because I'm the type of person that loves to decrypticize, if that's a word, people's like advice, essentially, or really anything that they say. But Bill, when he mentioned this, he really meant, or at least to me, this is what he meant. Don't rely on being an information hound, to rely on other people's experiences to be what fully and 100% guides you in this profession. Because at the end of the day, everyone has a different path. There are things that worked for one person, and then there's things that have worked for the next person. And it probably is not going to work for you. I know people that have had once in a lifetime opportunities come to them through an email. I've had people get into this space just by walking into the studio with a friend. You have people in this space that, were content creators and got into this space and voice acting just by just slipping on a rock. There are so many stories and so many bits and pieces of advice out there. There's so many things that have, built these people's careers. But at the end of the day, you need to have your own path. You need to have your own path. Go out there, put in the work, do the research, learn things on your own, find out what it takes to be in this space and industry, and learn, make your own mistakes, do all these things, have your own personal experiences, and try not to be so information savvy and allowing what worked for other people and try to make what worked for other people work for you. Find something and find the things that are going to work for your career. In the space that you are in, the environment that you're in, your situation, your financial situation, all these other things, your age, blah, 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 blah. There's so many factors to it. So go out there and learn what works for you. Because this career, from what I've learned, voiceover wise, it's a very hard career because there isn't a step-by-step process. I'm a firm believer in saying that. There isn't a step-by-step process for voiceover. That's why whenever the generic question gets asked of how do I get into voice acting, it's the broadest question that you can ever ask a voice actor because there's so many aspects to it. And even like the little stuff of like demo reels. Demo reels isn't like a step-by-step process either because there's so many different types of demo reels. There are so many different types of demo production services that you can go to. There's people that have made their own and have succeeded. It's crazy. So trying to, find a step-by-step process in what worked for other people, it will ruin you. It will ruin you. So that what I got from Bill was find your own journey, have your own journey, and experience your own journey. Be on your own path. Don't try to walk on someone else's path because that's their path. It's not yours. Walk your path. Clear your obstacles. Do what you need to do to reach your end. So that's number one.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. People come from different all walks of life. Like people are theater actors, people have no acting experience at all. Um, like I said, some people just kind of stumbling into it. I think that's a really important lesson to learn. right? One
Hmm.
thing that I kind of struggled with personally is that there is no, with just kind of like any type of, with a lot of creative fields especially, there is no just, oh, go to school, get this degree, and hopefully get a job, right? It's things aren't that simple. There's
Yeah.
no traditional way of like, oh, I'm gonna go and be a voice actor. I'm gonna go to school for it.
Yeah.
Um, and like, of course, you can go to acting school, but it's not that doesn't guarantee you anything necessarily.
Exactly.
And it's again, there's no definitive career path, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's really important to kind of just hammer it out. I think
Yeah.
a big thing and something I'm learning too is that you just kind of just have to do it. You have to
Yeah.
find a way. To quote a classic movie, Stuart Little. When when there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of us should try to remember.
Hmm.
But yeah, so you said you had some other advice as well. You said you had two more.
Yeah. Yeah, I have two more. I have two more. So the next one is from the boy AJ Beckles. Man, I love AJ. He's such oh my I could speak about AJ for like a good hour, bro. Like he is a really good friend and I love this dude to death. So the best piece of advice that, I got in part two, second one, is from AJ, like I said, and it's the body of your work will bring people to you. Now, I am not going to be descriptive of this from what he explained because I do like to keep DNs private. But from overall what that means and the kind of the backstory behind that is that a lot of people have the tendency to do everything they need to do in order to become prominent in this space. Like they try to get into controversies, they try to get into drama, they try to do all these things to make themselves more valuable and a talent on social media. But with this piece of advice, right? I'll provide an example. Um, so there was this person, right? Um, got into voiceover pretty recently. Wasn't really known in this space too well, but they booked a role in a pretty prominent video game production. And when they booked that role and they announced it on Twitter, they went from, I believe, what was it? It was some crazy stuff. But they went from like a low amount of followers, around like under 1,000, to 24,000 followers on Twitter just by announcing that they were in this prominent video game series. And that is only proof that the body of your work, which means what you book and what you do and what's your resume like and all these other things, that what you are doing will bring people to you regardless, will bring you followers, will bring you success, will bring you connections and all these other things. So when people worry about, you know, trying to become popular, trying to become prominent, doing all these things so they can be able to gain followers and blah 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 blah, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because you should be focusing on what does, which is acting, you know, trying to advance yourself in the space of industry and trying to get your body of your work increased towards where you can have that moment of putting out an announcement and then blowing up. And there's a lot of actors that have those stories. They went from nobody knowing who they were, like, I said that again, who they were, like no one cared essentially, and them booking something prominent, and then everybody cared, everybody started to see them, and everybody started to get to know them. So you don't have to worry about doing everything you need to do or doing all these stupid radical things to try to make yourself prominent, more well connected in this space. Just be you, be genuine, and just put yourself out there, because you don't have to be what you don't want to be in order to reach success.
Wow. I mean, you're absolutely right. Looking at looking at this stuff and trying to make a name for yourself and just not worrying about it. You kind of mentioned it before, like when setting auditions. Sometimes I feel like it's common for people to get in their head and worry about things that don't really matter.
Hmm.
Because we of course everybody wants to be successful, everybody wants to succeed, everyone wants to do well. We don't know what's going on in people's lives that makes them want to like be this way or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
but I think that like was said what AJ said. I mean, you could look at even AJ himself. You know,
Yeah.
like he recently, I think, or I say recently, but like a year, 2 years ago now, like before he had like Kimono Jihen or like Takamichi, he was known in the indie space, but you're not I can't go to a con and be like, oh, here's my booking. I'm in this whatever indie production.
Yeah.
You have to have some type of like credits or notice, but it shows that the dream is possible. If you're
Hmm.
talented enough, if you can do it, things are possible. You know,
Hmm.
and one thing I kind of want to say, and one thing I'm learning too, is you don't need to always follow all of the rules to do what you want. You
Yeah.
don't need to have a demo reel. I think I forget. I think I was talking to you, and you said that AJ didn't even have a demo reel when he got invited to an agency, right? So I think that's something where if you believe you can do it, then just go for it, right? And
Word.
your talent will light the way for you, and you just have to believe in yourself. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. So
100%. And third piece of advice that I would provide, because yeah, I would love, I want to do more, but I'm not sure how much time we got. But the last one would be one from me, and this is probably the biggest thing that I preach, social media wise, to my peers, to my inner circle, no matter what, is mindset. Mindset, mindset, mindset. I am a firm believer that mindset is one of, if not the biggest factors of your success in the voiceover industry. It does not matter how good of an actor you are, how fancy your equipment is, how good your demos are, how well connected you are in this space. No matter how lucky you are, your environment, any other factor, if you do not have the right mindset going into this career, you will fall. And you will fall really, really, really hard, no matter where you are in your career. You can be in the industry and your mindset can switch up and you will fall. You can be a beginner and not have the proper mindset and try to get into this industry and you will fall. Now, what is the mindset that I'm talking about? It is what I like to say, it's a factor of many things. Work hard, work smart, put those things together, and go at it. I seen, and I had this clicking moment when I attended like a lot of conventions, talked to a lot of people in this space. It seems as though everyone in this industry is as obsessed about this career as I am, which is a scary thing. It's a scary thought because I'm a very obsessed like person. I get called the crackhead of voiceover essentially, or I'm self-proclaimed because I'm so hyper obsessed about this career. I talk about it every single day. It is a part of my life almost, which is wild. But people in this space just as obsessed, are just as obsessed. And they all have the mindset. They're constantly working hard for what they're doing. They're constantly working smart to make sure that they're not, putting their mental health at stake for this career, having time for themselves, and making sure that their efforts by working hard isn't slipped up from them not working smart. And it's the same thing reverse. Making sure that you're working hard so that your efforts from working smart doesn't flop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, like, there was this person on Twitter. I forgot their name, but they were in JoJo, and they posted this on Twitter, and they talked about this. You're always on the wheel. You're always on the wheel. You're always on the grind, even when you're in this industry and you're in this space. So if you do not like the grind now, you know, auditioning, marketing yourself, putting yourself out there, taking workshops, connecting with more people, fixing up your website, researching, doing all these things to grow your business, then you're not going to like it if you get into this industry. And if you don't like it, there's someone else that loves it. And there's also someone else that's obsessed with it. And there's also someone else that spends 19 hours of the day thinking about it. That's where I'm at. So, like, you got to have the right mindset going into this career. You have to, bro. And there's so many other pieces of advice that I can give. Like, make sure that you have plans for yourself. Make sure that, you're a kind person. Jesus Christ. But yeah, because the Twitter space has been exploding right now, bro. Make sure that you're a good person, bro. It's not that hard.
Yeah, guys.
So
Please
many,
be a good person. Please be nice to
yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, but there's so many other pieces of advice I can give. But my main thing is maintaining a healthy, productive, go-getter, clearing every obstacle in your way type mindset. And I believe that obtaining that mindset can push you so far in this space. And I can prove it. I got into this career last year, I would say, when I developed this mindset. It was the year of, well, not last year exactly. I would say 2021, November 20th, my birthday. Anime NYC. From then to now, my career has been the span of that time. So I would say 1.5 years so far, or 1.25, whatever. Just by having that mindset and quote unquote unlocking it from the 20th of November in 2021 all the way up to now, I have grown a lot. A lot. Man, I'm only 18. Like, bro,
Yeah.
like, I have grown exponentially. And yes, there's other factors, to my success. There is the fact that I live in an environment where now my parents are supportive of my career. Yes, there's the fact that I'm young and 18. I don't have to deal with as much financial responsibility as other adults. Yes, there's that. But I have seen people. I have a friend, Jeremy Burke Miller, who's been in this career 6-7 months, has the same mindset as I do, and he is making bread. Like, he is making cheddar from this career. And just by having this mindset, the people that I hone very close, the people that I relate to the most, the people that I call my friends, the people that are really close to me, they all have this mindset, which is crazy. And I see them all the time doing this, doing that, researching this, researching that, putting in the work without even me having to tell them. And they're putting in the work and they're getting the success that they deserve. I see it all the time. I see it with every big name on Twitter in the indie space. They all have the mindset. They all have it. You got to have it. And once you have it, nothing will stop you. I promise you nothing.
Well, I just wanted to say, thank you so much for your time today, Nasim. You've been a delight, hearing your experiences, talking to you. I think there's a lot that people can learn from this episode of the podcast. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you again sometime, and so would the viewers. So, Yeah, so go ahead and shout out any social medias you have. Let us know if you have anything going on. Just give us the rundown.
100%. So like I said, my name is Lux Path. Really everywhere. At Lux Path, LucksPath. Everywhere you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you can find me. I'm also going to be attending this year's WeebCon as a featured guest with my group called Limitless Creation, a bunch of very big and established anime TikTok creators. We're going to be there all 3 days. We got a panel. It's going to be dope. We got signings. So if you're there, if you're in the Dallas, Texas area for WeebCon, please come say hello. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to crackhead about voiceover. We could do whatever you want. I'm good. But yeah, I really appreciate you for having me on, man. This has been a wonderful trip. I have so much more of voiceover to talk about. So if anyone would ever want to pick my brain, feel free to DM me with any question or any concern you have about this career. I'm more open to talk, but I'm not a teacher. I am just a crackhead. So, but yes.
All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. See ya. Bye.
See ya.